You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
All right, huddle up. We're going to crank these engines up on one. All right? Wait, 80. Set. Drivers, start your engines.
This is the Finish Line.
I coached some great offensive linemen in the past. Larry Little, Dwight Stevenson, Jim Langer, all Hall of Famers, and Richmond Webb belongs to that same group.
Here are your hosts, legendary Miami Dolphins left tackle Richmond Webb, Reason, and Mr. BallGame.
What is going on, Dolphin Talk Nation? We welcome you back into the Finish Line. As always, I'm your co-host, Reason, and I'm joined by the legendary Richmond Webb and Mr. BallGame. And tonight, guys, we got a draft review special. We're going to go over every single selection that the Miami Dolphins made in the 2021 NFL Draft. And as always, you can follow any of us on Twitter. You can follow Richmond Webb at Richmond Webb. You can follow Mr. BallGame at KCTSR, and you can follow myself at _real_reason, and you can follow Dolphins Talk at Dolphins Talk on Twitter as well. Richmond, BallGame, how are you guys doing this evening, and how are you guys feeling coming off of the 2021 draft?
I'm feeling good. Considering what we did in the draft, I figured we was going to take a wide receiver and then to follow up with Jalen Phillips. Probably got the best, edge rusher in the draft. So to be able to get a guy like that at the 18th pick, I was extremely happy. I was hoping we would get, one of the three running backs we had talked about previously, but, that didn't happen. But
they tried.
But overall, I'm pretty happy with, what we did. But I think if we would have got that running back, I think that would have sealed the deal. But they definitely made moves and did some address needs where we needed them. And so I'm happy with what they're doing. How you doing tonight, Mr. BallGame?
I'm good, man. I mean, it's been a really exciting week, especially coming off of the draft where I think Chris Greer and Flores did an amazing job of filling the holes on this team and potentially giving us 4 starters out of the group of picks that they made. That's all I could have ever asked for, Since we're going to do the breakdown, we'll get into all of the particulars of each kid. But it's been a good week, man, aside from, my guy left today. Other than that, I'm good. I'm good as a Dolphin fan. I'm good as someone that's willing to talk about and discuss the good and bad and the, good, bad, and the ugly of this team. So, yeah, it's been a good week. So,
all right, so let's hop right in to the draft in the first round of pick 6. I was warning y'all. I said the smoke was around everyone but this man, and he was also number 1 receiver on my big board. And the Miami Dolphins end up taking Jalen Waddle, who I've labeled as one of the, next to Rondell Moore and Kyle Pitts, the most dynamic receiver that was in this draft. You're talking about a guy who, in his first 4 games of the season last year, he posted 557 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, and averaged 22.28 yards per reception, while Devontae Smith, who a lot of Dolphin fans coveted in that same span, posted 483 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only averaged 12.71 yards per reception. You got a guy who he's been lined up in the backfield, the slot, as an X receiver, a guy who can play, who was motioned a lot. He's got an explosive release off the line of scrimmage. He can use his body, twitch, his speed, whatever, to beat you off the line of scrimmage. Smooth, fluid hips, quick feet. This guy is the definition of yak ability. And one of the things that I always preach that I love about this kid is his high aptitude. He understands open space angles better than a lot of people I've seen that are as fast as he is. He's not just a vertical threat. He strategizes once the ball's in his hands how to make people miss. He's also a guy, his career average of yards per reception is higher than Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy. 5'10", 182 pounds. He's physical too. A lot of people sleep on his ability to go up and win contested catches. This is a guy who, I got a lot of love on Twitter when I put it out there that, people need to stop pigeonholing this guy to just a slot option. He is much, much more than that. And the broken ankle isn't really concerned because it was a clean break. There was no ligament damage at all. But this is a kid who is very, very special. Let's start out with you, Richmond. When we took Jalen Waddle, number 6 with Devontae Smith, and the other guy I was kind of banging the table for, Penei Sewell still on the board. What were your thoughts on the pick at 6 of Jalen Waddle?
Well, we had kind of talked about, as far as we pretty much all agreed that it was going to be a receiver. And I kind of always thought toward the end it would be between Waddle or Kyle Pitts. And I think it just depended on what, a couple of teams would do before we had the 6th pick. But I do remember you mentioning that like a couple of weeks ago that Waddle might be the guy, and they were using a smokescreen, which I thought was smart, because if you let everybody know who you want, it's a possibility another team can come up to take that guy. But I was definitely happy with the pick. I consider Jalen family. Don't know him personally, but, I told you on this show before, I played with his cousin. He was a receiver at Texas A&M with me. So I actually went to go see him play a couple of years ago when Alabama came to Texas A&M and went with his cousin. We were both down there and watched the young man play. So he's right here from the Houston area. A lot of people like him. And then I think the thing that really sealed the deal for him after we took him is listening to him, post-interview after he got drafted, and such an humble kid with, the playmaking ability, and, he's electrifying, this and that. And you would a lot of times would think somebody like that would be very arrogant person. But I've heard nothing but positive things about this young man, and I'm definitely excited. And I love the comparison. Some people were comparing him to like a Tyreek Hill, and you kind of confirm it by saying you could put him in the backfield, slot, reverses. He's just a playmaker, and, either run after catch or yards after catch. If you get this guy just a seam or a crack, he can get through it, and he definitely can make you pay. So I was definitely happy with this pick.
BallGame, your thoughts on Jalen Waddle being the 6th overall pick for the Miami Dolphins?
Well, like Richard said, we talked extensively about what direction we figured the Dolphins would probably go in. For me, it was pretty much summed down to a weapon at 6. Thought they'd use one of those picks to get a defensive player, which they did also. But I like the fact that, and I see the comparisons, and I know people like to do comparisons, but for me, I think Jalen Waddle is going to be Jalen Waddle. And he's going to be a different version of anything that we've seen thus far, because I think he has the ability, and he's a little larger than Tyreek, by the way, to carve a niche out for himself, be similar to but better than, I think, because evolution doesn't go backward, it goes forward. So for me, I think he's the new evolutionary improvement to what Tyreek Hill has shown us, is the epitome of a guy that size and that having that explosibility at that size in the NFL. So I like everything this kid does. What it screams out to me more so than anything when I look at Jalen Waddle is dangerous. Those are dangerous, scary, extremely hard to defend, matchup nightmare is other things that come to mind for me in terms of describing him. And I'm really elated that we have that at our disposal. as opposed to having to defend that. So for me, it was definitely a home run in regards to the pick. I think without a shadow of a doubt, getting to someone that he's extremely comfortable with, that they have history with as well, is going to prove to be very, very advantageous for us. And I'm elated with the pick, man. I didn't think at 6 they could have went wrong, but this pick in particular, I think is definitely they hit it out of the park, especially when you consider the fact that he can play special teams too. And he's just as dangerous there as he is if he's lining up on offense. So, it was, first pick off the board, that happened. I was already pretty much locked in to enjoying the ride from that point. So,
yeah, he's people make the Tyreek Hill comparison, but people got to also realize Tyreek Hill was a running back coming out of Oklahoma State. He wasn't a wide receiver. Right. When you look at Jalen Waddle, he's a much more refined route runner than what Tyreek Hill was coming out of. And the word that came out of draft circles was the number 1 player on the Dolphins board was Trevor Lawrence, and the number 2 player was Jalen Waddle. That's how highly they valued this kid. So that's a different conversation for a different day if they actually had him ranked above Kyle Pitts and Penei Sewell, which they obviously did have him ranked higher than Penei Sewell because they took him with Sewell on the board. But for me, the only negative of the situation is from here on out, we're not going to lie to ourselves. His career, fair or not, is going to be compared to what Penei Sewell did. And that's because the day after he was drafted, the Detroit Lions came out and they said due to Taylor Decker being on the team, Penei Sewell is going to be the starting right tackle for the Detroit Lions, not the starting left tackle. And we'll get into that later because that was a need that they addressed later on. Okay, at number 18, they picked a guy who he was number 2 on my edge board. And, the opening line of my evaluation of him was Phillips would probably be my edge 1 if not for the concussions and moped injuries that ultimately led to him medically retiring at UCLA. He was a 5-star recruit when he came to UCLA. This is a guy who sets the edge well. He can stand up, which is, I think, going to be his role here as an outside linebacker, edge player. He can put his hands in the dirt. We're talking about a freakish athlete right now who gets through contact with ease, got great pop in his hands when he initiates. He's got tremendous closing speed. His read and recognition in the passing game, as well as diagnosing run plays, he's just so well at it. When he rushes to the inside, he just owns and manhandles guards. I mean, Trevor Lawrence still has nightmares about this kid from when they played Clemson because he was all over the field. This guy, if he did not have the red flags, he's a top 10 talent. And in every mock I put out, my final mock, I had us taking an edge player at 18 because I was just locked in. And the only reason Azeez Ojulari was number 1 on my board was because my edge big board came out before the Indy medical checks, and I didn't know about Azeez Ojulari's ankle or his knee, which were flagged in Indy at the time of my big board. Now, had I known, then Jalen Phillips would have been the clear and away number 1 because the injuries were all that would held him back. Let's start with you, BallGame. I think this is a very special pick. I think this is a guy with a high motor. You always hear me talk about your boy Van Ginkel, about how the trait I love about Van Ginkel is he's a playmaker. Well, Jalen Phillips is just that. I love his repertoire of moves. He's got a very effective bull rush, swim move, and he always has a backup plan or a counter if his initial move is thwarted by an offensive lineman, which I love to see on tape. It's just a fun watch. What were your thoughts on Jalen Phillips being selected at 18 by the Miami Dolphins?
To be honest with you, I thought it was somebody was playing a trick on us. Just because there was no way in the world that I thought that we would be able to get Waddle and then turn around and get the number 1 edge guy off the board also. And then I kept watching the picks fall, and I kept thinking, like, well, damn, Flores going to get his defensive guy here, but who's available? And then we was in the chat, and I kept thinking, well, I ain't say it out loud, but I kept thinking, like, damn, Phillips still sitting there. What if? And sure enough, they picked him, and I was like, well, damn, there it is then. night complete for me. They didn't blow the first round. The kid, everybody knows what his potential is. I mean, he's shown you enough to know that legitimately he's a stud. So I don't have anything really to add other than the fact that I'm, again, happy and elated with the fact that Greer and Flores didn't waver on making that selection. They took it, saw the guy, he felt, he kind of fell to us, and you took the best player available, and he was arguably, without a shadow of a doubt, that guy and more. And what he's going to bring to this defense that's already stacked, man, is just oodles and oodles of more machismo and flexibility. And I just pity most offensive coordinators that are going to have to deal with the versatility that this defense is going to be able to exhibit. It's going to be extremely fun to watch this kid mature in this defense. And the concussions that concerned me to some degree, just because my son, that's what derailed my son with his chances of playing at the next level. But aside from that, man, once he cleared and he went through a whole season down in Miami, that kind of put that in the back of my mind that maybe that portion of it was behind him. You always gotta keep your mind somewhat, keep it in the back of your head. But his play on the field trumps all that stuff, and he's medically got cleared. He says he's good. You gotta take it for what it is. And the Dolphins got to steal, bro. Mm-hmm. And this kid is gonna be he's gonna be a problem for some years to come. So.
Yeah, if he didn't have those concussion issues, he would have been a top 10 talent. And I don't even like saying he's in a different tier from Chase Young. I think he's right under Chase Young.
Right under Chase Young, yeah.
I don't think there's that much of a difference. This is a sack and tackle for loss machine. He led the ACC last year in both of those categories in sacks and tackle for losses. Richmond, what are your thoughts on adding a guy like this? Because kind of going off something that BallGame said there, from what I understand, from what NFL personnel are saying, the Jets, the Bills, and the Patriots, all teams with young quarterbacks, are not happy that the Miami Dolphins landed Jalen Phillips. That's an exact quote. What are your thoughts on Jalen Phillips being the pick at 18?
Well, that puts a smile on my face right there a bit. When you hear people consistently, and not just one, but majority of people, it's a consensus that this kid, if he didn't have the injury concerns, he's a top 10 pick. And then I knew we wanted Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State, but we all kind of agreed that he would be off the board by the end. But if not, I figured he would possibly be there. So once he was off the board, and I was just saying, okay, what are we going to do? I was wondering, so are they going to take a running back? I wasn't for sure, but I figured they'd go defense, especially since they went offense with the 6th pick. But I wasn't for sure. But when we took that young man there, the first thing I thought about was, it just frees you up to do so many things. You can blitz 4 and still get pressure on the quarterback. You don't have to blitz a safety or a nickel or dime or whatever. But you can do so many other creative things when you can get pressure with your front 4. And if you want to bring a guy from the secondary, you can mix it up, and that's what he gives you. And especially if they put him at the right defensive end position, which most quarterbacks are right-handed. He's on that blind side, and just listening to some of your comments and BallGame's comments about him even if you stop him, he's got a counter move, this and that. He's just seems like he's a really smart football player, but he had a hell of a season last year and played at the U that last year. And so coming right from the University of Miami to the Dolphins, it was just a perfect fit. So for him to slide and be able to get a guy like that, like you said, the injuries were concerned, but it seemed like the majority of that was when he was at UCLA. So for him to come to UM, play a full season, and then you play against the competition like Clemson, like you say, he just created havoc up there. So when you play against the top teams in the country, and then you can play at that level, that definitely raises your stock. So I think we got a steal in the draft. It was kind of like when we took Tunsil everybody was considering him to be a top 5 pick, and he slipped to like 12 or 13, and we grabbed him. It's just all pluses when you can grab a guy like that. And like BallGame always say, there's just another toy for Flores defense. So he's got some nice toys over there right now to play with.
Now, before we get into the second round here, I was passed off some intel that the Miami Dolphins tried to trade up to 23 to snag Najee Harris. They tried to move up with the Minnesota Vikings. But the Vikings wanted the 36th, the 50th, and a 2022 day 2 pick for us to move up to 23. Before we get into the second round, we'll start with you, Richmond. Your thoughts about that package that the Vikings wanted, the fact that they wanted to move up for Najee Harris, and the fact that they didn't.
Well, I think they definitely wanted to move up, but when teams kind of know what you're looking for, a lot of times they're gonna put a higher price tag on whether it's really worth to see if you really gonna take the bait and do it. And I just think with Chris Greer and Flores, they really value, the draft picks, this and that, and it was just too rich for their blood, and they passed on it. But it's always good when you can get the information that they at least attempted to move up to get the guy that they really want, even though they couldn't. You make an attempt rather than just sit back and say, well, no, we're not gonna do this or that. And so it's always good to hear that. I hadn't heard that, but it's always good to, release information like that.
That's a breaking news that hasn't. I got told that privately by someone close to the organization.
Well, it's still good news. What I'm saying is, anytime you get information like that, that's good, and that's why it's good when fans listen to the show when you're a credible source and you don't just put anything out there. Here, say this and that. You're not that type of guy. I'm not. BallGame's not. But when you get information like that and they listen to it, they can trust it because a lot of people were upset that, we didn't get a running back in the first or second round, and they start trashing players we had taken. And I was like, man, we're going to be all right. Just, you don't know. But then when you come back and you hear, like you say, you got a source or you get information like this and you share it with your viewers and stuff like that, it should give them some comfort that, hey, we're doing everything possible to win. And I think that at the end of the day, that's all you can do. You have certain players you like, but you're not the only people that like those guys. Like you say, Najee Harris, I'm sure he was the number 1 running back just about on every team's board in the NFL. So, it just depended on what your need was and that there. So it's always good to hear information like that. So I appreciate you sharing that.
No worries. And what's crazy is I've been saying for months he wouldn't get past the Steelers. Everyone kept pushing back and saying they're going to get a tackle. The last couple of weeks, I've been telling everyone, what I'm hearing is the Jags want to take Travis Etienne. What did they go off and do? Surprise a lot of people with James Robinson on the board. BallGame, your thoughts on them not only wanting Najee Harris, but not allowing themselves to get squeezed out of the 36th, the 50th, and a day 2 pick for a running back in the first.
Yeah, well, I think when you factor in what Minnesota was asking for them to actually even get into that position, you had to weigh that against the value of the pick or the individual. And although they wanted him, it didn't make sense to give up 2 second-round picks this year for guys that could potentially be be starters for us for one player. Right, you're losing 2 players for the value of 1 when it's a position that, arguably they might not have deemed as a total priority, but I think it was probably more so another piece to give the tour to make him as comfortable as possible as well, which I'm all on board with, and why not let it be the number 1 ranked running back in the draft class. But I'm glad they, stick to their guns and figured out that was just way too much that Minnesota was asking for. And, it is what it is. I'm probably more elated about the fact that they actually took a chance for once and tried to get bold and go up, or at least inquire about it. I would have probably pissed me off a lot more if they hadn't inquired about it to see exactly what it would cost, But the fact is that they actually tried. That puts me in a good frame of mind that, they're at least trying to do everything possible to get premium talent at every position. So, I'm okay with it.
All right, we got a lot to talk about with the 36th pick. Let's start off with the selection. We'll get into the jumping after because I got some stuff to talk about with the jumping after by Denver. But Javon Holland becomes the highest selected Canadian-born player in an NFL draft. And this is a guy who, if anyone who listens to us has been watching Inside the NFL, I've been talking about Javon Holland since last summer because I watched a lot of Oregon, obviously because I had to watch Justin Herbert last year for the draft class and such, and I'm a huge Penei Sewell fan. Two guys on defense I talked about in Oregon were Kayvon Thibodeau, the end who's going, the edge who's going to be available to be drafted next year, and Javon Holland. Now, Javon Holland, I also had him in a top 25 player Dolphin fans should watch that I released in the middle of October before the COVID college season started. Now, this is a versatile guy. He was my favorite safety in this class. I liked him more than Trevon Morg, although I did admit that Trevon Morg's season this year, and because he played, he bumped him to safety 1. But heading into the season, I didn't expect Trevon Morg to have the season he did. So heading into this year, Javon Holland was my safety 1. Extremely high processing level, which helps him fit any coverage or alignment he's asked of. He's a very sure tackler. He can lay the lumber on receivers coming across his area. He's a true ball hawk. He had 9 interceptions over his first 2 seasons and another 12 pass breakups. He's got elite instincts. And he's got great makeup speed. So if a receiver gets a step on him, he can make up that distance, kind of like what you see with Xavier Howard able to do. Guys that are usually hard for people in the secondary to mirror, Javon Holland usually has no problem. This is a guy who he's been used in single high. He's been used in the box. He's been used in the slot. And he even had boundary reps with Oregon. And if you go back to 2019, Javon Holland was one of only 12 FBS players to record at least 65 tackles and 4 interceptions. 6'1", 200 pounds, fluid hips when he flips them, great length to his frame, elite read and recognition skills, which allow him to be impactful against the run when he's called upon. He is really as complete as a safety as you can get. One of my comps for him was Jamal Adams and how complete of a safety Jamal Adams was. And he's also a pretty good punt returner. He had 16 returns for 244 yards in the 2019 season. He's just, we always talk about how Flores and the staff, they love versatility. Well, it doesn't get more versatile than this guy. And that Swiss Army knife that they envisioned Minkah Fitzpatrick being, Javon Holland fits that. Let's get your thoughts, BallGame, on the Javon Holland selection.
So I had originally earlier that day before the draft started, about 4 hours before the draft started, as a matter of fact, put out a tweet and I said that at 36, because I saw a lot of people were talking about taking a running back at 36, and I said, don't be surprised if a safety goes off the board at 36. I thought about Maury, but then I didn't realize that he had the other back issues. Right. So I picked it being a safety. I just picked the wrong one because I didn't have that other information. I probably would have made it Holland if it hadn't been for that. But they couldn't have. Man, I tell you, man, when you look at what the Dolphins did with this draft, bro, they killed it. They smacked it up against the wall, bro, and they just beat it to death in a good way for us, because this kid is exactly everything we wanted Minkah to do for us without having to deal with the headache of even asking him to, because he's naturally going to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And they found, I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, their version of him who's probably going to be better, to be truthful with you, just because he's actually done all 3 phases of the secondary. Minkah was trying to play corner, didn't go so well for him. Holland's done it before. I think he can still do it now. He can play in the slot as well, and he can play up single high. And that in itself is a blessing returned to us, I believe, because, when we lost Minkah, I was kind of bummed out. But obviously, you don't want to keep a player around that don't want to be here. And then he turns around and goes to Pittsburgh and does the exact same role that we were asking him to do, which made no sense to me. But I think it was more about the fact that he didn't want to go through the losing process because he came from Alabama, so he was accustomed to winning. So he wanted to go win as opposed to the bumps and bruises of being with us throughout this journey. But it's okay because now we got our own guy. And I heard, in his interview, he clearly said, I'm coming in to do whatever they want me to do. Whatever the coaches ask me, I'll do. And that's what I like to hear. And his tape doesn't at any point disappoint. And his trajectory to where he's going to be is undetermined because it's all about this kid. And he has a dog mentality, and he has an athleticism and the wherewithal of who he is as a person to reach the highest level in the NFL. So I'm 100% ecstatic with this pick too. Man, they could have stopped in and I would have been good, but it just kept getting better. So
yeah, like you're talking about tweets. Every day before the draft started, I put up a list of players that I would like selected in that round, and Holland was on that round, but he was listed on a guy who I didn't view it as a need at the time, right? Because we still had Bobby McCain on the roster. Yeah. Richmond, what are your thoughts on Javon Holland at 36 when a guy like Tevin Jenkins was still on the board?
Yeah, well, just listening to the comments, and I saw his highlights. Didn't watch a lot of Oregon last year, but a guy that can play safety, corner, and play in the slot, and then is an unselfish player that comes up and say, wherever you need me, just put me on the field. And for you to compare him to Jamal Adams, that was at the Jets and now at Seattle, which is one of the best safeties in the NFL right now. I don't hear anything but win when you start comparing the guys like that. But it's very few guys that can play corner and safety. Normally, a guy starts out playing like cornerback early on, and as he gets older, he can transition into safety to extend his career, or whatever. But when you got that skill set, and you can kind of go behind. Not only can he be a starter, but if you have someone go down, you can move him to a different position and then bring in one of your backups that's not as versatile. So it was just a plus, a win-win. And then, when you hear these young men come here and look like they're happy to be here and trying to do whatever it takes to win, and just their comments, like, it's not about, I just play strong safety or I just play this position, whatever. You put me on the field. They basically just want to get on the field, and then when you call him a ball hawk, first guy I thought about was Ed Reed. And I'm not saying he's the same player, but when you got that knack, you can't coach that. That's instinctively to, like I said, to get the interceptions, that was one thing Ed Reed was, and he was that ball hawk. So if this guy is anything close to that or has that same type of instinct, he don't have to be the same player, but if he has that, that's invaluable. So I'm definitely happy with this pick.
All right, before we get off this pick, some news came out from Michael Silver of the NFL Network. First of all, George Patton, the GM of the Denver Broncos, he was watching Jalen Phillips, and if Jalen Phillips was about to fall into the 20s, he had assets in line and ready to move up into the 20s and take Jalen Phillips. Now, in regards to the 36th pick, the Denver Broncos were passed off intel that we were going to be selecting Javonte Williams with that pick. Basically how it went down, from my understanding, was Javonte Williams was 1A, Javon Holland was 1B at that pick, and they leapt us. They took them. This has also been verified by Ben Albright, who is a Denver Broncos insider, who is also in the Denver Broncos headquarters for all 3 days of the draft. He's come out and he verified, and someone even asked, well, then why did the card go up so quick for Javon Holland? And he said it was a matter of 1A, 1B. If Javonte was off the board, they knew who they were taking there. And then you saw the safety run started a little bit there, right? Because Richie Grant went off the board at 40 to Atlanta, et cetera, right? Trevon Moore went not too long after to the Oakland Raiders. So what are you guys' thoughts that, again, they kind of swung and missed in the same draft on a running back?
I think when you look at it, it's really, I think it really comes down to how much they were willing to do to get in position, right? To get him. And I felt like maybe they just felt comfortable enough that nobody was going to come. And unfortunately, this particular situation, we just missed. And that happens, right? And you take the good with the bad, right? But when you balance it out in terms of what they got for the pick, it doesn't sting as much, but it stings enough to remind you that, they still need to be proactive in the process of going and just getting the guy and just not worrying about the cost sometimes, right? But jumping for Najee would have cost way more than it would have cost to go ahead and move ahead of, because Broncos came from
40.
What number? 40. They came from 40 up to 35. Yeah.
They give the 50th. Sorry, they give the 40th and a 4th round pick, and they got the 35th and a 6th.
Yeah, we would have. So we'd have been swapping positions in terms of players. Then we'd have got the running back. We wouldn't have got the safety. So running back by committee team versus, I don't know. That's a hard one. That's a hard call. So, and because you got two players evaluated so closely together, you're kind of just happy with. I think you're really just happy if one of them's still there to fall into your lap, basically. So that's probably the way they played it, unfortunately. Which, go ahead.
What are your thoughts, Richmond, on this information?
Yeah, I think probably they didn't figure that Denver was going to jump ahead of them. I mean, like you said, Denver had intel that they knew Williams was their number one guy at 36. So,
you want to hear something even better?
Come on with it.
George Patton got text message by someone in the war room of one of our AFC East rivals, and they congratulated him on thwarting our plans.
Can you blame them? I mean, not only we can see it, but everybody in the AFC East sees what we're doing down here. So that's what I'm saying. If they would have knew, like you said, Williams was 1A, Holland was 1B, and they probably figured, okay, these two guys off the board, and it like you said, they tried to move up, they couldn't get Najee, and then Jacksonville took ETN the next pick, and they said, okay, we're possibly in position to get Williams, but like you said, they got intel and they said, okay, let's jump up in front of them and take this running back. So they were happy. So sometimes the same thing make you laugh or make you cry. So, you know what I'm saying? The thing about the running back, but when you can get a guy that's a ball hog, that's the only thing keeps sticking in my head when you said that. Y'all might have been happy and said, man, I wish Denver would have stayed where they were and we could have been dealing with Williams and not deal with Holland. So sometimes you got to pick your poison, but you got to drink it anyway. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna see how much they're gonna be laughing this year when we come up there to see them.
Yep.
All right. So the Miami Dolphins then they decide they overpay, as much as anyone wants to tell me they didn't. They overpaid to move up to 42. Okay, they gave up the 50th and a 3rd round pick next year to move up 8 spots. When the team we just talked about moving up 5, the Denver Broncos moved up 5 spots, and they gave the 40th and a 4th, and they got back a 6th on top of the 35th. So we overpaid. As much as anyone want to talk about, not only did we overpay, but at 6 and at 36, we passed up on the best 2 options at right tackle, Penei Sewell and Tevin Jenkins. All right. And we got Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. And when you talk about Liam Eichenberg, this guy is as close as to being an elite run blocker as you can be. Very high IQ. He's a great pass blocker. But if you look at him, he's going to have some games where, he's going to give you amazing reps, but he'll give you that one head scratching play. And you're just like, I don't know what happened there. And, he's a guy who, dude was length, he's got 32.28 inch arms. He's not going to hold his block for 3.5 seconds. It's just not going to happen. And you'll see guys with length can give him issues on that bend coming around him. But he's a great player. He's got great footwork. He's got pretty good hands, and he's pretty solid with his hand placement. When you talk about his football IQ, this guy understands blitzes before they come. He identifies the looper on twists and stunts. he's really, he also always identifies where the free rusher's coming from. He's just a very, very smart player. Now, his athleticism ain't anything that's going to pop off the screen to you. He relies on being a technician. He's technically sound. He's got some punch and pop at the point of attack. But this is a guy who he's a tackle, and I don't see him getting kicked inside. But I'm the word coming out is from the Dolphins is that not only is he going to be given the chance to compete at right tackle, there's some in the building that believe he's going to be handed the right tackle job so Hunt can kick inside. Like I've been preaching for like 375 days now. He'll finally move inside. Solomon McKinley with the Eric Flowers move is going to be going to left guard. But we found our right tackle, whether you want to, however you want to paint that picture. And the other good thing is Notre Dame has been producing high quality Pro Bowl level tackles for quite some time now. And we went and snatched a guy who has given up 0 sacks in his last 2 years. And the great thing about him moving to right tackle is if you go back to, I believe his redshirt sophomore season, because I think he's a redshirt. If you go back to his sophomore season, he played right tackle. So he's got reps there. Let's start with you, Richmond. What are your thoughts on the Liam Eichenberg pick? And are you happy that they finally seem to have hopefully found an answer at right tackle and not got an experiment there wherein everyone and their mother knew, especially because I was yelling in everyone's ear who was listening, that they had a guard trying to play him out of position at tackle. Now they have a guy who's a legitimate tackle at that spot.
Yeah, to me, it made sense, and I know a lot of people say we overpaid for that pick, and we probably did, but at this point, we need to protect our quarterback. So I didn't have an issue with it. I look at it, you got to protect your investment. That's Tua, and you got to give a little bit more for it. I think it's worth a shot. Like you said, one thing about this guy, like he was a left tackle at Notre Dame, but he's a technician, and a lot of times you don't have to be the greatest athlete, but if you consistently do things pretty consistently, you still get the results. So I didn't have a problem with it, and I think it solves the issue. I believe they're going to play him at right tackle. I believe they're going to kick, Hunt down inside, which makes more sense, and give us a more solid front five versus, leaving Hunt out there and then having some questions. I think he's a much better guard. And I think he'll be more comfortable. And as long as they get the communication and stuff together, I think they'll be fine. But like you said, when you get a guy that's high IQ, can pass the stunts, this and that, there's that. And we had issues at time last year where guys could switch off or at different levels of this and that. So you have a guy with that type of caliber that can do that. And then also that you said he's had reps at right tackle, so it's not an issue for him to move to the right side. It just makes sense. So we might have paid a little bit more, but if I can keep my quarterback clean and let him do what I know he can do, I have no issue with it. So I thought it was a good pick for us, and I'm glad they went ahead and addressed it rather than to continue. Like you said, we missed on Panay and then Jenkins. So okay, enough's enough. Let's get somebody in here, protect the quarterback.
Yeah, because Jenkins went not too long after to the Chicago Bears, who continued their strong draft, and they're actually kicking Jenkins to left tackle. And one of the reasons I heard we overpaid was because the San Francisco 49ers are planning on taking Liam Eichenberg. So that's one of the reasons we overpaid. BallGame, your thoughts on the Liam Eichenberg selection?
I don't have a problem with it, man. I'm not a guy that doesn't like solid O-line play. So for me, it really just comes down to them believing that the kid can do exactly what we needed to do. I think we said all along for months now that Hunt was out of position. So adding him, that allowing him to go back inside, man, solidifies two strong interior positions on this offensive line. Jackson's arguably going to be better. And who better to have than a guy that's has the flexibility of having played right tackle before. And, he's not flashy like you said, but I think he can get the job done, and that's really what you need. You don't need 10s across the board to be effective up front. So, I think he'll give us that and more. And I'm anxious to see what this young, hungry offensive line can do together with some time, some time under their belts together. I like the pick. I think we did probably overpay, like you said, but at some points, I think everybody overpays a little bit. If you got to get up to go get the guy that you really want, so nobody else don't steal him. So, and I don't think they really wanted to not take that chance, right? They missed it. You missed out on they were asking too much for the running backs. Then Denver jumps you to go get Javonte Williams. So they basically just said, F it, man. Let's go ahead and get this kid and get done with it and get out this second round because everybody, those are the rounds anywhere. I thought that if we was going to make moves, some teams were going to, really stick it to us to move up. Only because I think everybody in the league is really watching what the hell is happening in South Florida, bro. And they're not trying to do us any favors by helping us get better. So if they got an opportunity to stick us for something, they were going to take that chance. It could have been anybody else, but Minnesota want what they want just to move up to go get Najee because they knew that we had it for one, the capital to do it, and they see the upward mobility of the Dolphins. So why not take something from us for the future so that we don't have that much to work with? That would be the stance that I would make. So I get it, I understand it. And overpaying is overpaying, man. But is it really overpaying when you wind up getting what you wanted?
Mm-hmm.
Because I went to the mall a couple of times and bought some shoes, and my wife was like, "You paid what for them?" And I was like, "I paid the price tag." She was like, "Well, you overpaid." No, because when I throw these on with that fit I just bought, you're gonna see it then. You know what I'm saying? And as long as you can justify why you do what you do, then it ain't really overpaying. I don't think sometimes because you have to deal with it too. And I think they rationalized all that, man. I don't question any of the moves they make, man. I just know that a lot of teams are really looking at what the Miami Dolphins are doing, and ain't nobody gonna be coming to try to help. Mm-hmm. So they're gonna come to try to take away from that process, to take away from the greatness that we got going on. So overpaying is overpaying. It's all war at the end of the day, right? It's just a matter of it's chess, not checkers. So some pieces, you're going to have to sacrifice to get to the ultimate goal. So that's what they did. So
at 81, with a guy like Quinn Minor still on the board, the Miami Dolphins selected Hunter Long, tight end at a Boston College, 6'5", 254. This is a guy he's a far better route runner than what Gesicki is. He can beat defenders with his double moves. He has good timing and makes good cuts and breaks at the right time on his routes, creates separation because of his route running. He's got very soft hands. He's very good ball skills. When you talk about this guy, he only dropped 5 passes during his time at Boston College. This is a kid too who he's a great blocker. And he might be one of the more he might be one of the more rounded out tight ends in this class, and he's obviously more rounded and plays a more complete game than what we currently have with Mike Gesicki. The only knocks I think I would have on him is he's an average athlete. He's not going to give you a lot after the catch with the football, and although his hands are really good, he's not the best contested catcher. He hears footsteps coming, and contact ever hears the footsteps can cause him to drop the football. But this is a very, very solid piece that they've added, and for a team that runs the fifth most 12-man personnel in the NFL, Gesicki and Hunter Long be on the field at the same time. That's a salivating duo, and that's giving Tua more options and more weapons on the field. Let's start with you, Richmond. What are your thoughts of them at 81 drafting a guy like Hunter Long when they still clearly have a need at center behind Skura, because, Dieter, he's never snapped the ball in live action. He's never had to call out communications, identify blitzes, identify mics, et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts on them passing up on taking a developmental center like a Quinn Miners and going and adding to the tight end room, which it's, especially after they added Jabri Blount today, who's never even played organized football, former basketball player, son of Mel Blount, the Hall of Famer out of Pittsburgh. It's a really crowded tight end room right now. What are your thoughts of them adding a guy like that instead of looking to find that center?
Well, I guess when you look at it that way, what I see is instead of drafting a guy and using him to be a developmental guy at center, I think that would be Dieter. He'll probably get a lot of snaps during the quarterback camps, mini camps. I think with Hunt and Kentley at the guards, I mean, he'll probably work some guard, but they got to get him some reps somewhere, and I think center just makes sense right now with them not taking a center. And so they could have possibly drafted one, but they must feel comfortable enough to where they say, okay, we can put Mike here and let him get reps and learn from a veteran and get him ready to play. And then, like you said, with the tight end, good hands, route runner, all that. So a good blocker. So he's just a young kid. So in a way, that makes sense. And then you got to look at that, after this year, I think Gesicki is coming up or whatever. So possibly they're thinking, okay, if we can get somebody that's a better route runner, this and that, and he can block and stuff like that. Even if we lose Gesicki, we got somebody that at least have a year experience where, they can just plug and play and keep going rather than, having Gesicki hold something over their head and say, well, you don't have no other options. Now they have options at the position. But I believe that's a thought process. I don't know, but that's the only thing that makes sense to me. As far as not taking a center, I believe they're putting their trust, or they got their belief that Dieter's going to be the guy that's going to eventually take over at that center position.
What are your thoughts, BallGame, on the Hunter Long pick when a guy like Quinn Miners was on the board?
Well, I think I'm going to echo what Richmond said in regards to the battle between Dieter and Skura. Skura had pretty decent seasons prior to last year where he had the two brain farts and, games and things of that nature. But and he was injured too, so he's coming back from that. But I think they might be, like Richmond said, pretty comfortable with what they have in those two guys. And when you add Hunt and Kenley back into the mix, back inside, that's a formidable guard tandem that you're going to be dealing with in terms of size and athleticism and strength. So they can help the center a lot in that aspect. So I don't think they were necessarily overly too concerned about that position, to be honest with you. Now, bringing Hunter Long in puts Mike Gesicki on notice, because I've been pounding the table for quite a few years now about his lack of route running in regards to the route tree and his unwillingness to commit to being a better blocker. And this kid, Hunter Long, does all of those things very well. Works the intermediate area of the field pretty well. Arguably enough, funny enough that he's not the most athletic guy, but Mike Gesicki ran a 4.55 and Hunter Long ran a 4.58. So there ain't much difference there in terms of foot speed. Gesicki is that over the up the seam, catch it with the one hand type of guy, but I'd much rather have to have a guy that can't scheme for. When you and Gesicki on the field, you pretty much know it's going to be a pass play. He don't notice, bro. He got a lot to work on this year. He got to show and prove that he's going to round out to be a complete tight end. Otherwise, I think he probably going to get his walking papers. So
the writing is definitely starting.
Yeah.
To come on the wall for him right now. All right. So the Miami Dolphins, they decided to trade out of 156, and my best guess is because they saw a guy like Kenneth Gainwell go off the board at 150, 6 spots before them. They traded out of 156, and instead they gained a 4th round pick next year from the Pittsburgh Steelers And then they did not have a pick until the 7th, which is when they had 2 7th-round picks. And with that first pick in the 7th round, they took strictly a developmental guy at 231 and Larnell Coleman. Now, Larnell Coleman, he's a guy out of UMass. You know, he's got a huge frame, 6'6" and a quarter, 307 pounds. He's got really smooth feet. I saw this guy when we were at the Brawl Network. They did the College All-Star game, and he was actually there. You know, he finishes his tackles really well. This is a guy who was also a leader and a team captain at UMass, but he is strictly a developmental guy. He's got a lot of things he's got to work through. Like his hip flexibility is not that good right now. His understanding of hand placement is not that good. And he just needs to be able to handle that edge better when guys try to arc around him. But he's a developmental guy. Your guys' thoughts on Larnell Coleman at 231?
Well, I look at it pretty much if, like you say, you're a 7th-round pick, you basically I can almost look at you basically a free agent. So you're not fooling anyone. Normally you get drafted there, you're normally either a special teams player or a guy that's normally developmental player. So that's what I think it is. But he's getting with a group that should be pretty solid. He's got some veterans on that line, stuff like that. And so he may even end up being on the practice squad or whatever. But as long as he's getting reps in practice and you can work against guys like Phillips and Agba and that there, that's the best thing for him right there. So maybe not this year, but if he really works and like I said, works on his hip flexibility and hand placement and stuff like that, he's athletic enough to where he can really turn into a quality player for you. And what it seems like Coach Flores and Chris Greer are doing is continually to try to upgrade and create competition at each position. So the better the competition, the better you got to raise your player game, and cream always rises to the top. So I think it's a good pick. I think it's worth the shot. You know, like you said, it's a 7th-round pick. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you don't have a lot of money tied up in it. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I think because that hip flexibility, he might project better off on the inside at the next level. What are your thoughts on him, BallGame?
I don't have any. And I don't have any only because he was truly a 7th-round pick. So for me, I was more interested in I just looked at the name, looked where he played at, looked at his measurables, and then just said, okay, well, he's going to be a camp body at best. And if he can beat out someone for a spot, maybe on the practice squad, things of that nature, then that's good for us in terms of having a guy that we can develop long-term in the event that one of the other guys decides to move on, and then you can just slide him up, bring him up, and give him an opportunity to earn him some real money. So I kind of didn't look at him the same way I looked at our other 7th-round pick. So to be honest with you, so.
And that other 7th-round pick at 244 was running back Jared Dokes. They finally took a running back. This is a kid who he has basically been splitting time in the backfield with former Cincinnati running back Michael Warren. Jared Dokes had some serious durability issues he's had to also put up. I know my good friend and evaluator Ryan Roberts is really high on Jared Dokes. This guy, he has a powerful running style. He's got really good contact balance and power. He's got really soft hands. When he's playing, he's tough. He also, you look at him, he ran a 4.56, I believe it was. He's got pretty quick feet. He can get to the second level and he can make guys miss. You know, this is a player who, if he didn't have his durability issues and he wasn't sharing a backfield, you know, this is a guy who he could have went in the 5th. You know, I know his long speed is a concern for some people, but, you know, when you look at his power, his contact balance, his receiving ability, and his toughness, you know, this guy could be a steal of the draft. And this is a guy where, I was talking to my friend today. I said, we got Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmed. So if one goes down, you got the other that can step into the role. Well, this is a guy who can step into the role where if Malcolm Brown, something happens to him, bam, you got that guy who can step in and be used in short yardage situations, third downs, et cetera, et cetera. I'll start with you, BallGame, because you said you had some thoughts on him. Your thoughts on Jared Dokes out of Cincinnati at 244?
Well, I like the kid. And I like him because my son and I did a whole lot of I'm telling on myself, did a whole lot of betting, you know what I mean? And he was a part of our part of our tickets on a weekly basis, but also the fact that we watched a lot of these games with Cincinnati and whatnot. So I knew who he was, but I also knew he had the injury concerns. And then when I saw that we went and grabbed him at that point, and I was like, okay, the kid runs hard. He gonna give you everything he's got. He's a hell of a blocker, though. That's one thing that he does bring to the table that a lot of other guys don't. He blocks his ass off. So I was okay with it. He's not the name that most people are gonna just jump off the screen and be over the top happy about. But the kid, he's a workhorse. You know what I mean? And he's gonna give you everything he's got, and that's really all you want from a guy at that position, especially where they're picking him at. But I think he's arguably, like you said, the backup to Brown, and then Ahmed is the backup to Gaskins, and that's going to complete the running back room, and then because he's going to fall forward. He's not taking. There's not going to be too many chances that you're going to hit him and he's going to go backwards. He's coming forward, just like Brown does. Effectively, they fall forward. So I was okay with it, But I already conditioned myself to the whole running back I committed thing anyway. So the fact that they went out and got a guy, I was like, okay, well, that's Brown's backup. You know what I mean? And he said that right off the bat. So, and Laird, who can't, who messed up his opportunity by fumbling twice, and the opportunity they gave him, pretty much, he's probably going to be out of there. And those four guys will man the running back room unless somebody else just flashes on their radar in free agency at this point after some cuts were done. And there's a better option, but yeah.
What are your thoughts on Jared Dokes at 244, Richmond?
I like his size. Like I said, I like he's a power back. I just think if he makes his team, it's probably going to be on special teams unless we have some injuries at the running back position. He's probably not going to get that many reps, but the way he makes his team, unless it's just injuries, I think it's going to be special teams because it's only so many number of reps, and with him being the rookie and being a 7th-round pick, this and that. But if he can do punt, kickoff, he'll probably be on all the special teams. That's the way I would always tell guys that came in when I played. If you're one of the later-round picks of free agents, make the team by being a good special teams player, and then it gives you time to get the reps and develop it. I like his size and all that. I think he's good back. It's just he's going to get limited number of reps. So if I'm going to make this team, it's going to be on special teams. So that's the way I view it.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I want to see what he has more than we know what Patrick Laird brings to the table. I'd rather see what we can get out of a guy like Jared Dokes moving forward. And then the UDFA signings came in. The Miami Dolphins, they went out and they signed a couple of UDFAs. They signed Robert Jones from Middle Tennessee, former teammate of Tyshawn Render, who's with the Miami Dolphins practice squad. And if you go look at Robert Jones, he looks actually more ready to me than Larnell Coleman, and he can play guard. He's also had some reps at right tackle. A signing I really like, a sneaky one, was a defensive tackle, Jerome Johnson out of Indiana. He's very good. His inside move on guards is phenomenal. He can give tackles fits around, he's a good player, man. He's very productive at Indiana. I actually like this, and it wouldn't be a Dolphins draft if we didn't take another tight end, but Carl Tucker, he plays tight end and fullback. He played tight end a lot more in North Carolina. Then he transferred to Alabama, where they used him in a fullback role. This is a guy who's a very good blocker, and he's also got pretty soft hands. So that was an interesting one. And then they also signed cornerback from Georgia Tech, Jaitlin Askew. So we'll see how that works out. You got 4 UDFAs that you didn't normally. Usually these guys are signing 8 or 10, but they only signed out 4 so far. All right, as we wrap this up, my final question regarding the draft. BallGame, we'll start with you. What was your favorite pick out of all the draft picks?
My favorite pick was Phillips. I gotta go defense just because that's what I do. That's what I'm accustomed to. But I like the fact that we were able to get the number 1 edge rusher, a guy that's going to be able to plug and play right away and give us visible contribution immediately. So yeah, he was definitely my favorite pick.
Richmond, who's your favorite pick of the draft?
I'm biased. For me, it was Jalen, and it's because of the teammate connection, this and that. But like you said, a guy that can play receiver, kickoff return, punt return, the type of plays that he can make, the big playability, this and that. I'm looking forward to seeing him and Akon White. So that was most definitely the guy. That was my favorite pick right there.
Yeah, it's a tough one because that's where I'm basically torn between 2, and I also love the Javon Holland pick. I'm gonna go with Jalen Phillips, and the reason why is I think he has a legitimate chance to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And even though I had basically all these guys are at the top of my big board, so that's why it's hard for me to pick between the first 3. Jalen Phillips, I think he's the second highest betting odd right now to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. But I like the Jalen Waddle and the Javon Holland picks just as much. So that's kind of a cop out, but that's basically what it is for me. All right, final thoughts. BallGame, let's get your final thoughts.
I don't think the Dolphins could have went into this draft and come out any better, man. I mean, to go in and potentially have 4 starters come out, and have 4 major contributors come out of this draft with 4 major contributors that can help out day 1, bro, is just amazing. I salute Chris Greer and Flores for having the insight and saying the balls to stick to their plan against what most people would have probably wanted, and at the same time they did try to get aggressive and go up and grab some other key pieces that just didn't pan out, and that's just the nature of the draft. Sometimes the price that other teams want you to pay just might very well be just too much. So I'm glad they stuck to their guns, didn't overreach, at least then initially, but then they came back and got a tackle that they wanted, so they spent there as well, but they tried. So I salute that, and I think overall the draft was extremely solid. I'm happy with it, man. I'm just ready for the next phase of the NFL season to start, so we can start generating some more buzz and hear more stuff that's going on with these players and how they, get integrated into the process to get us towards the playoffs and hopefully towards the Super Bowl. So,
yeah, the schedule releases next Wednesday, and there's already an early leak right now. Apparently, that we'll be starting off the season on the road in Tampa Bay on Thursday Night Football. That's a leak right now, so take that as what it's worth. Richmond, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm happy with everything that they've done. I think this is the 3rd year they knocked it out the park, and I think that's why you continually see the improvement, the results, and the progression that this team has made each year. So definitely, like BallGame said, if you get 4 starters out of this draft, that means you're doing something right. So I'm extremely happy to continue to address needs and continue to build this team to where we not only have good starters, but we're starting to get depth behind those starters. So definitely happy. And then also, before I get out of here, I wanted to thank you for inviting me on your YouTube panel last week. I get to see you and BallGame interact all the time, but for me last week, it was fun. I said a lot, I did, but to be in the room with like that many guys that put in the work. I know you and BallGame do the all 22, this and that. So all the film study and stuff that you guys do, and then guys like Clump, Ryan. I'm in here with all these guys, and I can just tell by the conversation that's going in between everybody in the group that everybody is done their homework. So for me, it was like having a privy to being like a war room for one of the teams and have you guys discuss, and then everybody's sitting there listening, but everybody knows what they're talking about. So I definitely enjoyed that during the first round. So I want to give you guys a shout out for that, and let people know, man. I think that's why you listen to this channel a lot of times, is because you don't just blow smoke. You know what you're talking about. You guys have done the homework and this and that. And then, I get to be part of that, and I get to brag on you guys, stuff like that. So I thank you guys again for letting me be on the team with you guys. But I had a great time last week, so I had to let you know that. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. I know Ryan Roberts' dad had that was a thrill of a lifetime being able to talk to you.
Talk to you.
Yeah, my final thoughts here. I got to say something. People were pulling out the pitchforks and the torches, all because either they didn't get Kyle Pitts because we traded out of 3, or because we didn't get a running back in the first round. Now, this is why I tell people, the draft is my specialty. This is why I tell people don't fall in love with players, because there's over 250 players taken in an NFL draft, and the chances of your guys, not just guy, but your guys being selected is rare, because as much as you may love a player, there's 32 teams in the NFL, 31 other teams other than your favorite team. Who's to say they don't love the players just as much as you as a fan love that player?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I say don't fall in love with the players, because you're gonna get your opinion of a draft skewed. The amount of people I saw that wanted to give Greer a D- or an F grade just because they didn't get their guys, you need to calm down. You need to let these picks play out. I think we're all taken a little bit aback by Hunter Long at 81. But again, this is a team that runs the 5th most 12-man personnel. And I know we could talk about 4 starters, but if Hunter Long works out, you got 5 starters.
Yeah.
Your first 5 picks, if you hit on your first 5 picks as being starters, day 1 and day 2, that's not a home run. That's a grand slam, man.
Yeah.
So people just need to let it play out, see what happens, enjoy OTAs, enjoy camp, and just enjoy the ride, man, because we are a lot closer than we were last year. And with the additions we made in this offseason through free agency, our front 7 has become much, much stronger. Our offensive line, now we have a nasty interior. If you can get Skura to his 2018 form, and he's flanked by Kinley and Robert Hunt, it doesn't matter who the running back is there. They're going to be parting holes like Moses in the Red Sea, and we're going to be running right through it. So just let it play out. And again, I know some people are worried about Liam Eichenberg's arms at 32.28 inches, but there's plenty of guys who have been successful at the next level with 32-inch arms. Now, does it happen often? No, but it happens. And Notre Dame is one of the tackle U's out of here. So they produce high-quality tackles, and we got a high-quality tackle. All right, so we will see you right back here next week at the finish line. Until then, I hope everyone stays happy, healthy, safe, and blessed.